Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to pick up where Mr. Hipkins left off, it is quite clear to me that the transitional provision isn't adequate in this bill. It's not adequate for two main reasons. One of them is the one that Mr. Hipkins has raised, that we are now here in this House in September looking at passing this bill. And I acknowledge that this side of the House has strongly opposed this bill, and we stand by that opposition to this bill. But if members on the other side of the House are true to their word that their goal here is not to destroy student associations, then they would accept a change to these transitional provisions that would allow for a longer period before this law comes into force. Because the truth is that student associations, many, and certainly in the university environment, will now be needing to negotiate with institutions around what services are going to be provided. Institutions themselves are concerned about this. Bear in mind, all bar one of the polytechnics and all of the universities and all bar one of the wānanga came to the Select Committee and said, please don't pass this legislation. So this legislation is actually opposed by the institutions because they know about the value of the work that student associations do. They are now being placed in a position of having to negotiate or not with the student associations about the services that will be provided. We know from around the country that institutions are struggling with this. Students' associations are not able to engage with them in the way they would like. We're heading towards the exam period. It's getting towards the end of the year. The transitional provisions need to be updated, Mr. Chair, to take into account where we are in the year, how long this debate has taken to be completed. And as I say, this side of the House fully accepts that we have been part of trying to vigorously oppose this legislation. But if the members on the other side of the House are true to what they said to submitters in the Select Committee, in the public sessions, and if they are true to what they have previously said about student associations, they would change when this bill comes into force. But unfortunately, they sit there in silence, having listened to the submissions in the committee, and at the end of that process, they knew, the National Party members knew, this bill was wrong. It was unworkable. It was going to undermine the services that students got. It was going to undermine the advocacy that students got. It was going to undermine the educational experience of students. They all knew that, the National Party members of the committee, and there were possibilities for compromise. It seems it's now too late for some of those compromises to be put back on the table. But one thing members on the other side of the House could do is think about when this bill comes into force. Think about the students who will be coming in on the 1st of January 2012, who aren't people who are already enrolled, who are covered under this transitional provision. Think about those students. Think about the institutions who are trying to organise what services are going to be provided and create a transitional provision that actually acknowledges the reality of where we are. Because if members on the other side of the House don't do that, then it calls into question everything that they have said about their belief that students' associations do valuable things, that they provide important services. It undermines that and aligns them with the ACT Party's ideological opposition to student associations, because that's what's driven this. The views of a small number of students who couldn't even get the 10% of students required to run a referendum. The ideological views of the ACT Party tail wagging the National Party dog again. Members on the other side of the House have the ability to ensure that this bill does not come into force on the 1st of January 2012, that there is a proper transitional provision put in place that will actually facilitate a smoother transition to what, on this side of the House, we continue to believe is wrong. We continue to believe this is the wrong thing to do for students and for tertiary institutions. But if the other side of the House is so determined to push this through, then at the very least, put in place a transitional provision that actually gives some time to those institutions and to those students to adjust to a new reality. Because the truth is, if it's rammed through in the form it is now, it will cause significant upheaval. Services will be lost. 75%. We oppose the bill, Mr. Henare, because it's the wrong thing to do. It's the wrong thing to do. And Mr. Henare knew that. He knew that in the late 1990s when he negotiated the compromise that's been undone today. This is what we're doing today, ladies and gentlemen, undoing Tau Henare's legislation for the late 1990s.